For those who don't know, Enlisted has a very interesting past, and when I mean interesting, I literally mean interesting in the sense that they done a lot of missteps, or should I say, a few steps in one direction and two steps back, is putting it mildly. In today's video, we're going to be talking about all the times in which Enlisted, let's just say, made their game worse. And when I mean worse, in some of these cases, you will see they made it a lot worse, and in some other cases it is borderline unplayable. But that said, in this video we're going to be looking at all of the cases as of right now, because Enlisted is still going on, in which Enlisted has made their game worse. This video has been made possible for the friends at Discord. If you haven't liked, subscribe, or joined the Discord, highly suggest that you do. But that said, let's get started, because today's video is quite long. Starting with the heavy caliber update. Although very controversial in the sense that some people liked it and other people not, for some people the heavy caliber update was actually pretty good with a few new cool squads. Coming in December of 2022, it was essentially the update that saw and gave us the heavy MGs, or heavy machine guns. The issue was that these heavy machine guns could also shoot through wooden buildings and destroy low tier tanks in some campaigns, because remember, this was when Enlisted was still having the campaign system, and most notably this was used on maps like Moscow, and this can mow through entire squads behind buildings, and because they're all wood, that means that you basically have no cover, and because it is an early tier, or should I say an early game campaign, you can basically mow down every single tank. Because of said heavy caliber update, the heavy machine guns in Normandy specifically and other maps were overpowered. Eventually, Enlisted had to essentially tone down the HMGs to not let them shoot through wooden buildings, which was actually pretty good in the end, in the sense that we were not getting sniped from half a mile away from a heavy machine gun that can go through entire buildings, and we weren't just killed off the bat. So that's that. Moving on, we have the grenade launcher spam in May of 2022. The grenade launcher update, or in which I would say Enlisted making a better place update, in which Enlisted made grenade launchers better, was insane. If you don't know, Enlisted has upgraded the grenade launchers, or should I say buffed the grenade launchers in that specific update. From that point on, Enlisted has just made the grenade launchers basically like hand mortars. One grenade launcher can kill entire squads if you know where you're shooting, and if you don't, 2 or 3 guys killed. Essentially, you can literally storm the beaches of Normandy, killing entire squads with grenade launchers and then calling it a day, because let's be honest, you don't really need any skill to use a grenade launcher, at least compared to STGs and whatever, but grenade launchers, you just have to point in the general direction and you are almost guaranteed to have 2 or 3, and if you're lucky, 7 kills. And the good players really know where to use the grenade launchers at mass groups. And this eventually was fixed, but to this day, grenade launchers are still a pretty good option for just yeeting people and killing them. That said, that came in March of 2022, and let's move on to something more recent, and that is the Steam release. This release was essentially a quote-unquote minor event, with Enlisted canceling the quote-unquote Steam release almost as soon as it was made public. So for those who don't know, Enlisted first went on Steam in March 28th of 2024, and boy oh boy were people angry. For one, the Steam release cost you money, and the release was for early access. For those who don't know, Enlisted by that point was definitely not in early access, as seen with full-time premium squads and whatnot. Not to mention the fact that the game was clearly free, and they wanted early access on Steam, and you have to pay for the early access. For a game that is completely free, in my opinion, why are you asking Enlisted for early access, which clearly it's not, and then you ask people to buy your early access for essentially premium squads? So if you buy the early access, you get 2 premium squads, which, if you ask me, is just a massive money grab, because for those who don't know, which is almost impossible at this point, there's a thing called the Enlisted client, and that is completely free. And while we're being honest, those 2 premium squads aren't anything special, but they are just unique. That is the Steam release. It almost broke the back of the game, and that is saying something, because although it was short, the amount of damage that it did, it was pretty bad. That said, we have the merge, and this is extremely controversial in the sense that some people love the merge, other people hated the merge, and some people are just in between. Some of the grievances that we have with the merge is how the progression worked, and with weapons being at simultaneously different random places, and how the campaign system was being taken away in favor of a system that you really can't choose your own maps, and you're essentially being at the whim of the matchmaker. Essentially, there was no balance in tiers 1s, 2s, 3s, or tiers 3s, 4s, and 5, because they felt like Tiers 5 will instantly dominate, and Tiers 3 either are being grind tier or they're domination tier. And Tiers 1s are instantly, well, unfair tier. So that's that. Of course, there are people who love the merge, and they see it as the thing that made Enlisted better, with people on both sides coming together and saying, we either love the merge or we either hate the merge. But overall, it was not extreme to saying that a lot of people left the game because of the merge, which it did happen. But Enlisted is coming back from the thing, or should I say the mass release. But one thing that they really screwed up is the Stalingrad update. For those who don't know, in March of 2022, or should I say March the 30th of 2022, Enlisted released the new Stalingrad update. For one, if you wanted to play the game, it was borderline unplayable. Because, well, let's just say there were multiple players that couldn't get the update if you were playing on console. Because apparently, Enlisted has not seemed to remember they have console players, and they essentially didn't allow some players to update the game via console, or they did not fully support Stalingrad on console, which is an achievement in my idea, in the negative attempt. Not to mention that half the stuff was behind a paywall, meaning you have to pay to progress to get all the weapons, or should I say, to get the better weapons. Because if you don't know, this was in the campaign system, in which you have levels 1 to 30 or something. And what happens is that some levels are behind a paywall, and you have to buy the paywall to buy these weapons. The idea behind the paywall was that if you buy the thing that removes the paywall, aka the bundle, which it also comes with a massive experience boosters, this continues for the entire campaign, then essentially you have an easier time grinding. The only massive caveat is that free-to-play players are basically slapped in the face because they essentially don't have this sort of deal. They essentially have to be locked behind a paywall, which I was and a lot of people were, and then what ends up happening is that they can't get some of the better weapons that are said in that campaign. Because of this, which leads to this third point, everyone was playing snipers, at least the free-to-play players were, because the only thing you can really do was snipe people. And let's be honest, because of Stalingrad's map, which I will get onto later, it doesn't make the best sense to not play sniper, because you have open streets, you have streets in which people have to run for essentially looks to be miles, and then there's a massive tall buildings in which you can easily hide. Essentially, this is Sniper Haven. Anyone who wants to get any kills if they're free to play, use snipers, which instantly turns Stalingrad into Sniper Hill, which the hills being the buildings, and everyone that played Sniper essentially knew how to kill each other, which eventually made it frustrating for everyone because before you can pop your head out, you're bang dead. So that was an issue. The entire thing was that the maps. Now, whatever you say about the Stalingrad maps, they are accurate. There's only one massive issue, and that is the fact that it looks too clean. For some reason, Stalingrad, which arguably had much more devastation than, let's just say, Berlin, looks to be much more clean. Considering the fact that there were more bombs drops in the first day of the Blitz than anything, then Stalingrad should be very devastated. It would not be so far to say that there are frozen corpses on the ground everywhere, which I know it's kind of hard, but that is the reality of the Battle of Stalingrad, which is not untrue. By winter, which is what we see in game, this was essentially the time in which Stalingrad was probably the most brutalized, considering the entire city was, well, let's just say, destroyed. For some reason, the game makes Stalingrad looking very or relatively peaceful, with some buildings in either some form of a shape, which is, if you look at the historical photos of Stalingrad, they look nothing from what they originally looked like. So that was the entire issue with Stalingrad. And then we have the missed opportunities. If that wasn't enough, with all these situations that I say wasn't enough, Enlisted has to stick to us by giving us the thing about the missed opportunities. For those who don't know, Enlisted to be exact, this was their third campaign on the Eastern Front, and back then everyone was wanting something new. Not in the sense that they were expecting something new, because, well, let's be honest, it is historically accurate, but they were expecting a lot of different squads, because the only thing we've been given is German squads, not that they aren't historically accurate, but the fact that we were expecting squads from, let's say, Romania, Hungary, Italy, and so forth. In the sense that, let's be honest, they were historically there, and they contributed to a massive factor in terms of casualties and in terms of manpower at the battle. What did Enlisted do? This is what they did. They added 2 Romanian planes and called it a day. Everything was behind a paywall, of which said Romanian plane, one of them, was locked behind the paywall, and guess what? It was the better Romanian plane, in my personal opinion. So not only did we not get a squad from Romania, Italy, or Hungary, we essentially got the exact same thing from essentially other campaigns, with some of the weapons being exact same copy and paste weapons from Moscow. And this was what really led to the Enlisted boycott. So you see, one of the Enlisted content creators, Quadros, started this thing called the boycott, and they boycotted Stalingrad. And to be honest, I was part of that boycott. I did not like this campaign. I liked the idea of the campaign, I just hated the way they implemented it. And this is why it goes in the #1 spot. That said, that is all it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.